Most people try manifestation for a few days and then quietly give up. They visualize money, they repeat affirmations, they imagine their dream life. For a moment it feels exciting, it feels possible, but then nothing happens. Bills still arrive, opportunities don't appear. Life keeps moving exactly the same way it always has. So they come to a simple conclusion. Manifestation doesn't work. But that conclusion might be the biggest misunderstanding of all. The truth is that manifestation does work for some people. You can find thousands of stories of individuals who claim they changed their lives through mindset, intention, and focused belief. Some people say they attracted business opportunities, career breakthroughs, or financial success after changing the way they think. So if manifestation works for some, why does it fail for most? The answer usually isn't what people expect. The first problem is misunderstanding what manifestation actually is. Many people believe manifestation is simply about thinking positive thoughts. They assume that if they imagine success long enough, reality will eventually match their imagination. But the mind doesn't work that way. Your brain is shaped by years of beliefs, experiences, fears, and habits. If someone has spent 20 years believing that money is hard to earn, that success only happens to lucky people, or that they are not capable of achieving big goals, those beliefs don't disappear overnight. You can repeat a positive affirmation in the morning, but if your deeper beliefs are still negative, your mind will constantly pull you back to the same patterns. In other words, manifestation fails when people try to change the surface of their thinking without addressing the deeper structure underneath. The second problem is inconsistency. Most people approach manifestation like a short experiment. They try it for a few days or maybe a few weeks. They listen to a meditation once or twice. They visualize a goal before going to sleep. Then they stop. But the brain changes through repetition. Think about how habits are formed. Whether it's learning a language, building a business, or improving your health, progress only happens when actions are repeated consistently over time. Manifestation works the same way. It is not a one-time event. It is a process of gradually training the mind to focus on new possibilities instead of old limitations. Without repetition, the mind simply returns to familiar patterns. There is also a third issue that people rarely talk about. Most individuals attempt manifestation while their emotional state is dominated by stress, fear, and uncertainty. When someone is constantly worried about bills, job security, or financial survival, their brain enters what scientists often call a survival mode. In that state, the mind becomes focused on avoiding danger rather than exploring opportunity. It becomes very difficult to visualize abundance while your nervous system is convinced that resources are scarce. This creates a conflict inside the brain. One part of the mind is trying to imagine success. Another part is constantly scanning for threats and reinforcing fear. That internal conflict weakens the entire manifestation process. And this leads to one of the most important insights about manifestation. Manifestation is not just about thoughts. It is about alignment between thoughts, emotions, attention, and behavior. When those elements work together, people often begin to notice small shifts. They become more open to opportunities. They make better decisions. They take actions that move them closer to their goals. But when those elements are disconnected, manifestation becomes nothing more than wishful thinking. Many ancient traditions actually described this process using the idea of energy or vibration. In modern language, we might describe it as mental focus and emotional conditioning. Either way, the principle is similar. Your attention shapes the way you interpret the world around you, and the way you interpret the world influences the choices you make. Those choices eventually create different outcomes. So when manifestation fails, it is usually because people are missing one key component of the system. They are trying to change outcomes without changing the internal patterns that lead to those outcomes. Real change happens when the mind gradually shifts its focus, emotional responses, and expectations. That is why techniques like meditation, visualization, and mental conditioning have existed for thousands of years. These practices help people slow down their thoughts, become more aware of their patterns, and consciously redirect their attention. Over time, this can reshape how the brain processes information. When that shift happens, people often begin to notice something interesting. Opportunities that once seemed invisible start to appear. Ideas that once felt impossible begin to feel achievable. And decisions that once felt risky start to feel like natural steps forward. This doesn't mean the universe magically delivers success overnight, but it does mean the mind begins operating from a different perspective, and perspective changes everything. So if manifestation hasn't worked for you in the past, it may not mean the concept itself is flawed. It may simply mean you were only using a small piece of a much larger system. The key is understanding that manifestation is not about forcing reality to change. It is about training your mind to recognize possibilities and act in alignment with them. That process takes time, repetition, and the right tools. Once people understand this structure, manifestation stops feeling like a mystical trick and starts looking more like a method for mental conditioning. A method that, when practiced consistently, can influence the way you think, the way you act, and ultimately the direction your life takes. If you want to explore this idea further, make sure you subscribe to the channel because we'll be breaking down more concepts about mindset, manifestation, and the psychology behind success in future videos. And if you're curious about a system that uses guided audio frequencies designed to help train focus, calm the mind, and support the manifestation process we discussed today, there's a helpful resource linked in the description that explains how it works and how people use it as part of their daily routine. For anyone serious about understanding manifestation and applying it consistently, that's a good place to start.